The school day had started like any other. Students filled the hallways with chatter, lockers slammed shut, and the smell of cafeteria food drifted through the air. Among them walked Princess Pacquiao, head slightly bowed, books clutched to her chest. Despite her last name, she lived like an ordinary student. She never boasted about who her father was, never used her family's fame to get special treatment. In fact, most of her classmates only knew her as a quiet, respectful girl who minded her own business. But one student noticed her for the wrong reasons. Marcus, the school's notorious bully, had a habit of picking targets, usually the quiet ones who didn't fight back. That morning, his eyes landed on Princess. She was walking alone down the hallway when he stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Well, Marcus sneered. Look who thinks she's too good to talk to anyone. Princess glanced up, startled, but kept her composure. Excuse me, I need to get to class. Her voice was calm, polite, almost too gentle. To Marcus, that was an invitation. He smirked and leaned against the locker beside her, deliberately getting in the way. What's the rush? Don't you want to say hi first, or are you just too fancy for us normal people? His words dripped with mockery. A few students nearby slowed their steps, sensing trouble. They pretended not to watch, but their eyes kept darting toward the scene. Princess took a quiet breath. She had grown used to ignoring people who tried to bring her down. I don't want any problems, she said softly, shifting her books in her arms. But Marcus wasn't satisfied. He stepped closer, smirking as he towered over her. Too late for that. You're standing in my hallway now. A nervous giggle escaped from one of the bystanders. More students began to gather, curious to see what would happen next. Princess stood her ground, refusing to show fear. She wasn't weak, just wise. But Marcus mistook her silence for submission, and that was his biggest mistake. Because what he didn't know was that this quiet girl wasn't just any ordinary student. What happened next would leave the entire hallway in shock and freeze Marcus in his tracks when he learned who her father really was. The air in the hallway seemed to thicken as Marcus tightened his stance in front of Princess. Students who had been rushing to their next class slowed down, forming a loose circle around them. Some whispered nervously while others pulled out their phones, eager to capture whatever was about to unfold. The atmosphere was charged, like everyone sensed this was going to be more than just a routine bullying episode. Marcus tilted his head, smirking at his audience before turning back to Princess. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you think you're too special to talk to someone like me? Princess gripped her books tighter, her knuckles pale against the covers. She wasn't scared, at least not in the way Marcus hoped, but she was aware of the eyes watching, recording, judging. She had promised herself she would never use her family's name as a shield. She wanted to be respected for who she was, not because of who her father happened to be. That was her choice, even if it made her an easier target. I told you, she said softly but firmly. I don't want any problems. Please let me through. The word please only fueled Marcus's arrogance. He leaned closer, his voice dripping with mockery. Please, that's it. That's all you got? Wow, you really are weak. No wonder nobody knows your name. Laughter rippled through the crowd. It wasn't that they agreed with Marcus. It was nervous laughter, the kind that slips out when people don't know what else to do. Still, to Princess, it sounded like the entire hallway was against her. Marcus grinned at the reaction, encouraged. He slapped the stack of books out of her arms, sending them scattering across the floor. The sound of textbooks slamming against tile echoed through the hall. A gasp ran through the students, phones tilted downward, capturing every second of the humiliation. Princess froze for a moment, staring at her books strewn across the ground. Her first instinct was to bend down and gather them quickly to end the embarrassment. But then she straightened, lifting her chin slightly. She wasn't going to let Marcus see her scramble. You shouldn't do that, she said, her voice steady but low. Oh yeah, Marcus barked a laugh. And who's going to stop me? You? He puffed his chest out, basking in the attention. You think someone like you can stand up to someone like me? Don't make me laugh. A brave student from the back called out, Leave her alone, Marcus. But his voice was drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd. No one else dared intervene. Princess's heartbeat quickened, but her face remained calm. She remembered her father's words. Strength isn't about throwing punches. Real strength is how you carry yourself when others try to bring you down. I don't need to fight you, she said, locking eyes with Marcus. But one day, you're going to regret the way you treat people. Her calmness irritated him more than if she had yelled back. He wanted her to explode, to cry, to break. But instead, she was unshakable, like a rock he couldn't crack. The crowd grew restless. More students whispered, some muttering things Marcus didn't catch. One girl nudged her friend and whispered, "Do you know who she is?" "I think she's related to Marcus," cut her off with a loud voice. "Enough with your little speeches." He shoved her shoulder, not hard enough to knock her down, but just enough to show he could. "You're nothing, and I'm going to make sure everyone here knows it." Phones zoomed in closer, recording every second. The bully's words, the shove, the cruel grin, it was all being captured, destined for social media. But what Marcus failed to notice was how the tone of the crowd was shifting. The nervous laughter was dying down. Whispers of recognition were starting to spread. Some students exchanged wide-eyed looks, realizing this wasn't just any girl he was messing with. Princess stood tall, her eyes unwavering. She could feel the tide turning, though Marcus was too blinded by his own arrogance to notice. "Is that all you've got?" she asked quietly. The words weren't loud, but they carried a weight that cut through the noise of the hallway. Marcus blinked, thrown off for a split second. The smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered, puffing himself up again. "Oh, you think you're tough now? You're going to regret saying that." He had no idea how right he was, because in just a few moments, the truth about who Princess really was and who her father happened to be would change everything. Have you ever seen someone bullied for no reason? Where are you watching this from? Comment below and share your story. The hallway, once buzzing with chatter, had grown strangely quiet. Only Marcus's taunts and the occasional shuffle of sneakers echoed against the walls. Students were packed shoulder to shoulder now, their phones raised like an army of glowing eyes. They weren't just watching anymore, they were waiting. Marcus, feeding off the attention, sneered at Princess. "You think you're better than me, huh? Walking around here like you don't even exist. Let me tell you something. This is my school. People respect me here, and you're just a nobody." Princess's chest rose and fell steadily, though her heart raced inside. Every word Marcus spat was like venom, but she refused to let it pierce her. She had endured far harsher words in her life. Criticism, judgment, even hate from people who didn't understand her family. Her father had always told her, "Ding stolen unless you hand it over." "I'm not a nobody," she said softly, but her voice carried in the silence. "And neither is anyone else you treat this way." The crowd stirred, murmurs rippling. Some students looked at each other, surprised at the calm strength in her words. Marcus, however, just laughed cruelly. "Oh, listen to this little preacher. What are you going to do? Give me a sermon? This isn't church, it's high school. And in high school, the strong eat the weak." With that, he gave her another shove, harder this time. Princess stumbled back a step but didn't fall. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and a few students shouted, "Hey, stop!" But no one dared to physically step between them. Princess's hands trembled slightly, but she steadied them at her sides. She lifted her chin, meeting Marcus's glare with quiet defiance. "Strength isn't about hurting people," she said. "It's about protecting them." The words hit harder than Marcus expected. For a flicker of a second, his grin faltered, replaced by confusion. Why wasn't she fighting back? Why wasn't she crying or running away? His entire game revolved around breaking his victims. But Princess was different. She wasn't bending. The students noticed it too. The whispers grew louder now, snippets of conversation darting through the crowd. "Wait, I think I know her? Isn't she? Pacquiao's daughter. No way. Are you serious? Look at her. She does kind of look like him." Marcus caught the murmurs but brushed them aside. "Don't listen to them," he snapped, trying to keep control. "You're nothing. You don't belong here." But the crowd's energy was shifting. The smirks and giggles had faded, replaced by frowns and glares directed at Marcus. Even some of his usual followers were lowering their phones, uncomfortable with how far he was taking things. Princess bent down slowly, not to pick up her books, but to gather herself. She inhaled deeply, then straightened, her voice stronger than before. "You think this makes you powerful?" she asked. "I embarrassing people in front of a crowd. Hurting someone who never did anything to you? That's not power, Marcus, that's weakness." The hallway buzzed with approval. A few students even clapped, though they quickly quieted under Marcus's glare. His face flushed red, veins bulging in his neck. He had never been challenged like this. Not by teachers, not by students, and certainly not by one of his so-called targets. He stepped forward again, fists clenched. For a moment, it looked like he might actually hit her. The crowd gasped collectively, phones jerking higher, capturing the moment. Princess didn't flinch, she didn't step back. She stood her ground, eyes locked on his, unshaken. Her stillness rattled him more than anything else could have. "You don't scare me," she said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. That was the moment Marcus froze. Not because he realized who she was yet, but because her words pierced straight through his bravado. He was used to fear Tyr's submission. But here was a girl who gave him none of that, who faced his cruelty with calm defiance. The tension was unbearable. Every student watching knew something was about to happen, something big. And then from the back of the crowd, someone said it loud enough for everyone to hear. She's Princess Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao's daughter. The name cut through the hallway like a thunderclap. Heads turned, phones zoomed in closer. Marcus blinked, confusion flickering across his face. He wasn't sure if it was a joke, a rumor, or the truth. But either way, the balance of power was shifting. Marcus still didn't fully believe it. And so, instead of backing down, he pushed forward, completely unaware that his biggest humiliation was yet to come. The name Pacquiao echoed through the hallway like a spark hitting dry wood. Suddenly, the hushed whispers grew into an audible buzz. Students glanced at each other with wide eyes, nudging friends, tugging on sleeves, pointing toward Princess. "Wait, is it true?" One student muttered. "No way." "Manny Pacquiao's daughter. Here in our school, I've seen pictures. Look at her face. She really does look like him." The crowd leaned in closer, their curiosity replacing the nervous silence from before. Phones tilted upward, students zooming in, eager to capture the girl who might be related to one of the greatest boxers in history. Princess stood motionless in the center, her eyes fixed on Marcus. She hadn't spoken a word about her family. She hadn't confirmed anything, and that was intentional. She wanted to win this battle, not with her father's fame, but with her own dignity. Marcus, however, laughed at the whispers. He puffed out his chest, shaking his head. "Pacquiao? Her? Don't make me laugh. You think the daughter of some famous boxer would be walking around here like this? Nah, she's just another nobody pretending to be special." The words landed flat. For the first time, the crowd didn't laugh with him. They didn't cheer him on. Instead, they frowned, some even glaring at him as if they were finally seeing through his act. One student near the front spoke boldly. "No, dude, she is his daughter. I saw it on her Instagram once. That's Princess Pacquiao." Marcus's grin wavered just for a second, but he quickly forced it back, unwilling to lose face. "Even if she is, so what? That doesn't mean anything here. She's still just another weak girl in my hallway." Gasps rippled through the crowd. His arrogance was beginning to look desperate. Princess finally bent down, gathering her books one by one. She didn't rush. Her movements were calm, deliberate. When she straightened, she faced Marcus with the same quiet confidence she had carried since the beginning. "You think hurting people makes you strong," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the silence of the hallway, every word carried. But real strength isn't measured by fear, it's measured by respect. Her words landed heavy like a punch without being violent. A few students even clapped softly, their courage growing as they rallied behind her. Marcus's face reened. He stepped closer, his shadow falling across her. "Respect? Don't lecture me about respect. You earn respect by being tough, not by running your mouth." Princess didn't move. "No, you earn respect by how you treat people. That's something you'll never understand." The crowd erupted in murmurs again. Someone shouted from the back, "She's right." Another added, "Leave her alone, Marcus." It was subtle, but the tide had officially turned. The students were no longer entertained by the bully. They were rooting for the girl he had tried to humiliate. Marcus clenched his fists, his pride burning hotter with every second. "You think just because your dad's some boxer that makes you important? Guess what? He's not here right now. And you're not him. You're all alone." Princess inhaled slowly. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't let it show. She remembered her father's advice during one of their talks at home. When someone disrespects you, don't let anger win. Show them that dignity is louder than hate. "I don't need my father here to stand up to you," she said firmly. "I can stand on my own." The crowd reacted instantly. Tears broke out louder this time. Emboldened by her courage, Marcus's eyes darted around, realizing his audience was slipping away from him. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the room. Still, his ego refused to back down. He raised his voice, desperate to reclaim authority. "You think you're tough? You think you're better than me? Fine. Prove it. Let's see what you've got." The students gasped. Was he really challenging her? The daughter of Manny Pacquiao in front of the entire school. His words dripped with arrogance. But underneath there was something else. Fear. Princess didn't flinch. She simply stared at him, her silence louder than any insult she could have thrown back. And in that silence, Marcus began to feel the weight of his mistake. The whispers swelled again. No longer whispers, but shouts. "She's Pacquiao's daughter. You're going to regret this, Marcus. Do you even know who her dad is?" For the first time, Marcus's bravado cracked. His smirk faltered, his eyes flickered with uncertainty. But still, too stubborn to admit defeat, he stepped closer and pointed a finger at her. I don't care who your dad is, you're nothing without him. The crowd booed. Students who once feared him now openly turned against him. Their phones weren't recording a cool, dominant bully anymore. They were capturing his humiliation in real time. Princess didn't gloat, she didn't smile. She simply stood taller, her presence radiating quiet strength. The truth was out now, and the walls were closing in on Marcus. But the final blow, the moment that would freeze him completely, was still to come. Marcus had no idea that very soon his world would flip upside down, not because Princess revealed anything, but because someone else was about to walk into the scene and confirm it for him. The hallway was no longer Marcus's stage. The students weren't cheering for him, laughing at his cruelty, or feeding his ego. They were watching Princess with wide eyes, whispering, recording, waiting. The name Pacquiao hung in the air, impossible to ignore, and Marcus could feel his grip on the crowd slipping, but he wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Marcus jabbed, a finger toward Princess, his voice echoing against the lockers. You think you're tough because people say you're someone's daughter? That doesn't mean anything. You're not your dad. You're not a champion. You're just a scared little girl. The words were meant to sting to remind her that he still had power. But this time, Princess didn't lower her head. She didn't shuffle her feet. She didn't whisper quietly. Instead, she raised her chin, her voice carrying clear and strong across the entire hallway. "You're wrong," she said. "I'm not scared of you, and I don't need to be a champion in the ring to stand up for myself." The crowd stirred. Some students clapped. Others cheered softly. The courage in her voice struck them like a spark in the dark. Marcus's smirk faltered. He wasn't used to this. He was used to tears, trembling voices, desperate pleas, but Princess wasn't giving him any of that. Instead, she was growing stronger with every insult he threw at her. He stepped closer, his face inches from hers. "You think you can talk back to me like that? You think anyone here is going to protect you?" Princess didn't flinch. "I don't need protection from people like you," she said firmly. "You don't scare me. And if you think hurting others makes you strong, then you don't know what real strength is." Her words hit like a punch to the gut. The crowd erupted louder this time. Cheers, shouts, chants of support. The tide had fully turned. Marcus's control was crumbling before his eyes. "Real strength," she continued, her voice steady, "isn't about fists or threats. It's about respect. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. That's something you'll never understand, Marcus, because all you know is fear, and you hide behind it like it makes you powerful." The crowd roared. Students clapped, stomped, shouted her name. The hallway had become a stage, and Marcus was no longer the star. He was being exposed. His mask of power ripped away in front of everyone. For the first time, Marcus's eyes darted nervously to the phones recording him. He saw the judgment in the faces around him, the disgust, the disappointment. He wasn't intimidating anymore. He was pathetic. "Shut up," he barked, his voice cracking. "All of you, shut up." But the noise only grew louder. Students chanted, "Leave her alone! Leave her alone!" Others laughed openly at Marcus's desperation, his arrogance once his shield was now collapsing. Princess didn't smile, didn't gloat. She kept her composure, her presence radiating dignity. "It's over, Marcus," she said softly, but the words carried like thunder. "You don't control anyone here anymore." Marcus's face flushed bright red. He opened his mouth to fire back, but no words came. He had lost them, all of them, his audience, his followers, even his sense of power. Still, his pride refused to die quietly. He raised his fists, trying to posture one last time. "You think you've won? You think just because you talk pretty, people will listen? You're nothing without your dad, nothing." The hallway gasped. The mention of her father's name wasn't casual anymore. It was desperate. Everyone in the crowd knew Marcus was losing control, clutching at the last scraps of power he had left. Princess stood tall, her voice unwavering. "You keep talking about my father like it's an insult, but let me tell you something. He taught me that respect is earned, not forced. And today, in front of everyone here, you just proved that you'll never earn it." The crowd exploded. Cheers filled the hallway, drowning out Marcus's weak protests. Students stomped, clapped, and shouted her name. "Princess, princess, princess!" Marcus froze. He looked around wildly, but everywhere he turned, faces glared back. His kingdom. A fear had fallen in a single afternoon, torn apart not by fists, but by the calm strength of the girl he thought he could break. Humiliation Marcus had once tried to inflict had been flipped back on him to fold. Princess, however, didn't gloat. She didn't smile or mock him. She simply stood tall, her books clutched in her arms once more. Her calm presence was louder than any insult she could have thrown. She looked at Marcus, her eyes steady. "You see, it doesn't matter who my father is. You should respect people because it's right. Not because you're afraid of their name." The words pierced deeper than any reveal. Marcus's shoulders slumped, his fists unclenching as the reality of what he had done sank in. He had built his power on fear, and now stripped of it, he was nothing more than a humiliated bully surrounded by the consequences of his own actions. Ramirez stepped forward. Marcus, you're coming with me. We're going to the office now. The bully didn't argue. His defiance was gone. He followed the guard, head lowered, while students booed him as he passed. The hallway, once a stage for his cruelty, now belonged to Princess. Students rushed to her side, praising her courage. Some thanked her for standing tall. Others admitted they had always been afraid of Marcus, but now saw him for what he really was. Princess didn't bask in the attention. She simply smiled softly, thanking those around her. Her humility shone even brighter than the truth of her father's name. Marcus, meanwhile, disappeared down the hallway, his reputation in ruins. He hadn't just lost control of the crowd, he had lost their respect forever. And all it had taken was one girl refusing to bow. The video of the confrontation was already spreading across the school. Within hours, it would explode online, and Marcus's humiliation and Princess's dignity would be seen by millions. By the end of the school day, the video was everywhere. What had started as a handful of students recording in the hallway had exploded into hundreds of clips being shared across social media. Within hours, the story of the bully who messed with Pacquiao's daughter was trending. The footage was clear. Marcus shoving Princess's books to the floor, mocking her, raising his fists, and then her calm, steady responses that silenced him. Viewers saw the moment Officer Ramirez revealed the truth. The instant Marcus's smirk froze into shock and the eruption of cheers that followed. Comments flooded in. She handled that better than most adults would have. This is how you fight bullying, with dignity, not fists. Respect to Princess Pacquiao. She's her father's daughter, but she's strong in her own way. The clip quickly jumped from school gossip to national headlines. News outlets picked it up, praising Princess's composure and turning it into a larger conversation about bullying, respect, and the importance of humility. Meanwhile, Marcus faced the consequences he had long avoided. The school suspended him for repeated bullying, and for once, no one came to his defense. His reputation as the tough guy was destroyed. Students no longer feared him, and even his closest friends distanced themselves. Online, he became the subject of ridicule. Memes of his shocked face spread like wildfire. Princess, on the other hand, didn't boast about her victory. She returned to school the next day with the same quiet humility as always. When classmates surrounded her, thanking her for standing tall, she simply smiled and reminded them, "This wasn't about me being Manny Pacquiao's daughter. It was about showing that no one deserves to be treated that way." But her father had seen the video too. Manny Pacquiao, known worldwide not only as a champion boxer, but also as a man of humility and faith, released a statement. He said he was proud of his daughter, not for being recognized as his child, but for handling herself with grace and strength. "She showed the world that dignity is stronger than cruelty," he said, "and that is worth more than any championship belt." The statement went viral almost as quickly as the video. Fans around the world praised Manny for raising his children with the same values he lived by: discipline, respect, and humility. Many said Princess had shown a different kind of strength, one that inspired people beyond the boxing ring. At school, the atmosphere changed. Students who had once feared Marcus now felt empowered to speak up. Teachers noticed a shift, too. The incident had sparked conversations in classrooms about bullying, equality, and respect. Princess had become a symbol of courage, not because she fought back with violence, but because she refused to be broken. Even weeks later, the video continued to circulate. News anchors replayed her calm words, "Real strength isn't about fists or threats, it's about respect." Those words became a rallying cry shared across platforms, quoted in articles, even printed on posters in schools that wanted to spread her message. Marcus, meanwhile, remained quiet. For the first time, he was forced to see himself as others did. He wasn't feared anymore. He was pied. And maybe, just maybe, he began to realize that his cruelty had only ever made him weak. Princess never gloated. She never mocked him or rubbed his humiliation in. Instead, she carried on with grace, showing that true victory wasn't about destroying your opponent. It was about standing firm in who you are. And so what began as a simple confrontation in a school hallway became something much bigger. It became a story shared around the world, a reminder that appearances can deceive and that every person, no matter who they are, deserves respect. If you believe no one should ever be judged by appearance or bullied for who they are, type respect in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this.